afternoon, everyone. Today's guest is Jud Friedman, and Jud is a hit songwriter, record producer, and screenwriter. He's had multiple Oscar, Grammy, and Golden Globe nominations for songs such as Run to You by Whitney Houston from the Bodyguard film and musical, For the First Time by Kenny Loggins from the film One Fine Day, and The Color of the Night by Lauren Christy from the film Color of Night. Other hits include I Don't Have the Heart by James Ingram, which was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. I Just Had to Hear Your Voice by Oleta Adams, a #1 Billboard Adult Contemporary song, and numerous other songs recorded by Rod Stewart, Tina Turner, Chaka Khan, Ray Charles, Toni Braxton, Leann Rimes, the Tenors, Dave Koz, Bebe and CeCe Winans, Right Said Fred, and Charice. Recently, Jud and his longtime songwriting partner, Allan Rich, have had several #1 records with Italian divas Giorgia and Elisa and other major records in various European territories. His topic today will be co-writing and the overview of how Run to You by Whitney Houston came about. Jud, take it away.
Thank you, Rick, and welcome everybody. Thanks for hanging out for a couple hours. I appreciate it. It was really fun listening to all the songs, and I hope you got some food for thought. I'm certainly not going to lecture for an hour and stand up on a podium. I'll give you some ideas about collaboration to start with. We'll talk about Run to You a little bit, but feel free to raise your hands at any time. We've got an hour, and I certainly don't have an hour's worth of things to say, so I'll be very happy to take questions. And if I'm done talking, then whatever time we have left, of course, I'm happy to take any questions that anybody wants to ask about songwriting or what I've done or what they're up to, ask questions about for advice or anything else. But the topic for today, I thought would be interesting to talk a little bit about the importance of co-writing and how it works, collaboration, songwriting collaboration. I don't know how much people on the Zoom have collaborated, if they like it, if they don't like it. Would like quick show of hands, who's collaborated, who's written songs with other people, or who does in general? A couple, probably about a little more than half, maybe. That's cool. Really briefly, do you like it? Do you not like it? Yes, no, show of hands, yeah, thumbs, kind of iffy. Maybe a yes, there's a thumb up. There's a pointer to the side. Okay, Matthew's giving a thumbs up. Well, okay, whether you like it or you don't like it, or you've done it or you don't do it, or you haven't done it, it's something to really consider as part of your songwriting arsenal and approach to writing songs. Before we start asking questions, let me talk a little bit, if that's okay, Nico, all right? Can you hold your questions for, I have your hand is up there.
Sorry, that was me trying to raise my hand. And
that was your, yeah, all right. No, I thought you were asking a question.
Mistake.
Yeah, I can see you raising your hands, by the way. You don't have to do the icons if you don't want to. Anyway, I think songwriting collaboration is really, really important. In fact, I know it's really, really important. It's something to think about whether you've done it before or you haven't done it before. And why is that? Why is it so important? Well, everyone does it. If you look at the current charts, the Billboard charts, and pretty much any genre of music, and you should be looking at the Billboard charts once in a while, and you should be looking at behind the songs and finding out who wrote the lyrics and who wrote the music and who produced it and stuff like that, and get a sense of what kinds of songs are being written by whom. The current charts throughout pop history, collaboration really is songwriting. And why is that? Why don't people write songs by themselves? Why don't artists write songs by themselves? Why don't songwriters who are trying to get artists to write their songs write songs by themselves? And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you like to write songs by yourself and you can do it, if you're good at everything, lyrics and music, if you're Prince, great. For all of us mortals, collaboration is a really cool thing, at least to think about. Why is that? Anybody? There are creative and business reasons that are very, very important for co-writing. Why is that? Anyone? Anybody have any idea why, on a creative level? Why do people write with other people? Why is it a good thing to do?
Is it that old saying about two heads is better than one?
Yeah, basically, yeah. On a creative level, you co-write to create something each collaborator would not have come up with on his or her or their own, and to make it better, or at least different from what you'd come up with on your own. The goal is to get the best out of one another, with the whole being greater than the sum of individual pieces. And yeah, 2 or 3, or in pop music, 8 or 10 heads can be better than one. And that's the goal. They're not always, but if you get a good collaboration, yes, that's the goal. You want to work with co-writers who might be better at certain aspects of writing than you are, and vice versa, and combine your strengths. Maybe you don't think of yourself as much of a lyricist, but you're great with music. You're great with chord changes. You're great with melody. You're great with production, which used to be separate from songwriting, but these days is very much a part of songwriting, because lots of people co-write with track writers who just write tracks. And the word just is not meant to minimize their contribution. It means solely tracks, as opposed to it's not an important part, because as we all know in pop music these days, songwriting is very vibe oriented and production is very important. And it's actually become part of the co-writing process to a large extent. But on a more general level than that, we write with people who are better at certain parts of the songwriting process than we are, or just come up with different points of view. You know, I write everything. I write lyrics and music and I produce, but I still love writing with my longtime partner, Allan, who's mainly a lyricist, because he's such a brilliant lyricist and he inspires me. And that's the whole thing. You're ping-ponging, you're going back and forth. And if someone is great and you're vibing with them in the studio and the chemistry is great, it's really exciting, because they're taking you places you wouldn't have gone on your own on a creative level, right? And you learn from great co-writers. You get to be a better writer by working with other writers. You get to sharpen your lyric sense. You get to sharpen your melody sense by working with people who are great as well as you, or better than you, right? So there are very good reasons for songwriters in general to co-write with people. Creative reasons. What about business? Why would you want to write with other people as opposed to just writing for yourself? And remember, this is the music business. So to the extent that all of us on this Zoom are thinking of ourselves, or think of ourselves as professional songwriters who actually want to make enough money to buy the occasional pizza or salad, right, out of our work, and aren't just doing it to play for our friends and our families, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you're a professional songwriter, a very good reason, there's a very compelling reason to write songs with other people, and that is because you might be able to, people you work with might have some great context that you don't have, and you pool your context on a business level. Geez, I don't know, if I write the song myself, I have no idea how I'm going to get it to Rihanna. But guess what? My friend knows Rihanna's cousin's dog's relative's teacher from first grade, and maybe she can get it to Rihanna. Okay, let's see if we can sit down. I'll bring a really cool Rihanna vibe. Let's write it together, and then you take it to your friend's cousin's dog's teachers from first grade of Rihanna, right? Okay. So there's very good reasons in that regard, right? Even more basically than that, if you're an outside songwriter, and by the term outside songwriter, I mean someone who is not the artist on the song. The only way to get an artist to record your song, the only way, is to co-write with them. Look at the charts, okay? In virtually every genre other than country music, and country music is changing too, every single song on that chart will be quote unquote co-written with the artist. The artist's name is the artist is listed as one of the writers on the song. Now, do artists always really co-write? Are they actually really active participants in the co-writing process? Not always. And there have been some big scandals in the publishing and songwriting world in the last couple of years, with songwriters coming forward and saying, which has been happening forever, wow, artists are taking percentages of songs. They really didn't do anything on songs. So there's some scandals there and controversies. But yeah, for the most part, I think artists have voices. They want to be, whether they're good songwriters or not, and a lot of them are fantastic songwriters, don't get me wrong. But even if they're not, they want to have their name on the song. They want to be in the room. They want to be hearing what's going on, or they want to be bouncing ideas back and forth through sending MP3s and lyrics, however the song is being co-writing. They want to be part of that song creatively. And also, why do they want to be part of it on a business level? Why do artists want to participate in the songwriting, have their names as a co-songwriter?
Royalties.
What?
Money.
Bucks. Of course, the big bucks. Somewhere along the road, artists and their managers and their record companies realize, wow, there's a lot of money in them hills. If I can get my name, if I can get 20% of a hit song, guess what? That's a lot of money. So let's do that, okay? By the same token, if you're the outside songwriter, you have to work with the artist. You have to co-write with the artist, right? The artist is not going to want to write with you unless you really have something serious to bring to this table. Okay. You have to learn how to be a good co-writer, because why does an artist want to write with outside songwriters? Anybody? What are they trying to do? What is an artist, a big artist like a Rihanna? Lucius? I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got
Okay,
you.
what happened was if you're working around the same formula, eventually that formula is going to go cold, get cold. Okay. Well, like I said, what worked over the past few recordings of projects, you know, is going to start fading. Everybody's going to say, oh, he started doing the same stuff all over again. So you have to keep bringing in a new perspective.
Right. And that's the beauty. Exactly. That's the beauty of co-writing. The artists can sit down, co-writers also, same thing. I get outside opinions, I get new perspectives, I grow, I change, I look at different options as songwriters, I try different things, I take more chances. But on a very basic business level, as an artist, if you're going to bring in one of us in this room for your record, if Rihanna's making a record and she says, God, I need some people to help me write. What is she trying to write? What does she want to write with outside people? She wants big songs. She wants great songs. She wants special songs. She can write songs, and I'm using Rihanna as an example, nothing to do with her actual songwriting abilities. But pretty much anybody who's a decent artist or songwriter can write a pretty good song. But the songs that break through, the ones that are the hits on the radio, the ones at the end of the show, people are waving their cell phones, the ones that generate the big bucks, that's what the artists want the outside songwriters for, right? And why again? Bucks. They're not, every time they sit down at a piano by themselves, they have $1, every dollar that comes in is theirs. As soon as they call one of you guys, it's 50 cents. As soon as they bring a third person in, it's 33 cents, right? They're giving up a lot of money by bringing in outside collaborators, so they want special stuff. Okay, so as an artist, you want great songs, but you're willing to do it, and you collaborate with other people. All those artists who are listed on the charts, whose names are as listed as co-writers in the songs, they brought those other writers in to make great songs that would break through, not just to write any kind of song. And the outside songwriters were dying to get with the artists so they could get on their records, because you can't write a song and then pitch it to an artist and expect them to cut it. They're not going to do it. You still write songs to show to artists, to impress artists, to get their managers going, hey, this could be a really cool person for a writing session, or maybe we can take this song and change it. But you have to be used to writing, co-writing with other people if you want to get songs on their projects. So if that's what you're trying to do, co-writing is really important. And if you're the artist, to get, unless you're totally self-contained, to have better songs, to have the best possible songs, you want to bring in outside songwriters. So as an artist, you also want to be used to co-writing, right? Okay, any questions about this so far, real quick?
Can
Yes.
I just add another thought on collaborating?
Yeah, sure. I got plenty more, but go for it.
Well, you might get around to this, but one of those brutal truth things about, since we talked about the business, you know, a lot of times you're working for people that they don't want it good, they want it Tuesday. And I find that with collaboration, you can get things done faster, as in, here's a finished song, rather than, I'm kind of pondering where to go next with the bridge, and no, boom, here's the song.
Well, sure. It absolutely, it frees you up. I don't have to write everything. Of course, it makes it a lot easier in some respects to have other people covering some of the bases, of course. Okay, so there are all types of collaborations, right? For different purposes. Everyone is unique, like every song and every songwriter, right? There are no rules, as I said before, all this stuff. There are never any rules, but there are strategies and approaches and things that tend to work, and people keep doing them because they tend to work. So some of the things I would suggest when you're thinking about co-writing, okay? First of all, when you're walking into a room, and some of these are going to be very common sense, but you'd be surprised how people do not give them enough thought or consideration or attention. When you have a co-writing, a collaboration coming up, be prepared. Before the session, think about, what is this collaboration for? What are we aiming for? Who are we writing for? What is the project that we're trying to create something for? Go through your ideas files, your journals, whatever you do, your notes, your voice memos. Bring some to the co-write, depending on what the collaboration is. I'll always go through my, the hits I haven't written yet list of a page or two of my favorite ideas, right? And pick a couple of them that I think could be right for the session. And then I'm prepared when I walk in. what does that do? What, in several ways, how is that really, really helpful for a collaboration? Anybody?
Keeps you from wasting time.
Okay, I don't think of it as wasting time, but yeah, what it gives you a head start, right? First of all, it gives
Okay.
you some ideas to work off. Okay, and so you've got something to start with. That doesn't mean those ideas are going to be the ideas that end up being the song that you write or the songs that you write, but they're building blocks or pool balls. I like to think of them. If it's a good idea, people in the other people in the room might go, I don't know, I'm not quite sure about that, but that makes me think blump. And then somebody goes, really, that's not it, but what about that? And the pool balls are running around all over the table, and eventually one falls into a hole, right? So it's just a good way to start things. It also, on a business, I'm always thinking music biz. On a business level, what does it tell people when you walk into a room with a few ideas? Somebody who hasn't said anything yet. Anybody? Come on, speak up, don't be shy.
You're professional.
Yes, somebody who hasn't said anything yet, please. Let's go. Some other people have some ideas. Yes. Risa. Can't hear you. You're muted. Unmute.
It shows them that they can't just say no. You're giving them more choices to say yes to, or to say, okay, I like that. Give me more of like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's not a matter of saying yes or no. It shows them that you're a serious person, that you're taking this seriously, that you're a professional songwriter, okay? You're prepared, okay? And that's really, really important thing to communicate in any area of life. Any project you're working on, you show people that you're really taking it seriously, and they'll take you seriously, okay? Okay, so next thing I would think about, when the big question people have, how do I start a collaboration? What do I do? Besides, I'm walking in, I'm prepared. Now, how do we start? We're sitting in this room with these strangers sometimes, a lot of the time, right? There are no rules again in this area, but my suggestion, something that I found works really well for me and a lot of other writers I know, is don't walk in with guns blazing thinking, okay, I got to show you this. Let's sit down and start writing, right? You got to hang out a little bit and schmooze. Talk about life, get to know the people in the room, even if you know them. Relax and let the walls come down a little bit. Just don't get right down to business. Don't focus on getting tensed up and thinking we have to write a song, we only have 2 hours, because it's really self-defeating. You're stressing when you want to be de-stressing, when you want to be as relaxed and let things flow through you as much as possible. And there's another reason for starting to schmooze and talk about things. First of all, it makes people comfortable with you if you don't know them. There's a video I show to a lot of my students we don't have time for, where Dua Lipa, who's a very, very hot artist now, if you don't know who she is talking about the songwriting process of one of her big hits from her last record. And she's talking about how she's in a room with several people, some of whom she'd worked with a number of times before, but there was a new guy in the room she'd never met. And they didn't start writing a song for a while. They just talked and got to know one another, because she was very worried about it. She was like, God, songwriting is such an intimate process, as you all know. If you're working with somebody else, to try to really show your deepest soul and heart and emotions, right, to people in a song, as long as if you're writing something deep and you're trying to write something meaningful, right? It's kind of like going to Starbucks on a date with somebody you met on an app or something, and then 5 minutes later, jetting off to Vegas. It's like, it's way too deep. It's not earned yet, that relationship and that intimacy, but that's kind of the job. You have to be able to do that and make believe that you're best friends. So you want to just, this person with Dua Lipa, and this is the way it happens a lot with artists and with other people, just hung out and talked and just got to know one another until you feel comfortable, and then things start to happen naturally. And ideas come out of conversations. You're just talking. What's going on in your life? Oh shit, I just had this thing happen to me. I ran into this guy I hadn't been going out with. Boom, there's a song. Suddenly the song is flowing right from that. It's a great way of starting songs as well as getting set up to write great songs. When you're in the session, leave your ego at the door. Leave your ego at the door. You have to be as open as possible to everyone's ideas, to letting stuff just happen. It's not about my way or the highway. You're not the only boss when you're co-writing. When you're writing by yourself, it's just you and your multiple personalities, okay? No, I don't like that. Yes, I do. Jud, what do you think? I don't know, Jud, what do you think? It's not just you anymore. You have to be able, if you're going to be a good collaborator and you're going to have a good collaboration where the sum of the parts is greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I always get that mixed up. You have to be, let other people have their say. You have to be excited about your ideas and confident in your ideas, but you also have to be willing to let people, give people some rope. And a lot of the times you're listening to their ideas and you're thinking, oh, geez, but you still have to give them their moment. Sometimes they'll surprise you. They start playing something and you're going, I don't get it. But then after they show you kind of what they're thinking, you get it. Or maybe it's not great, but it leads somewhere else. No matter what it leads to or doesn't lead to, you have to validate people. Otherwise, they're going to be closed and they won't be able to bring their great ideas. They're going to be afraid to express them. And it's not a good collaboration if you're taking over the session. So you have to find ways to work with other people, to synergistically try to create something from everyone in the room, not just from you. Okay. You have to try to find ways to get the best out of everyone in the collaboration. It's kind of like a psychology experiment. You walk in a room and you have to read the room very quickly. What is this person like? What is this person not like? What does this person need? If you're with an artist, what are her vulnerabilities? What is she scared about? Is she afraid that she doesn't write great lyrics? Maybe I should come with more lyrics. Is she more confident? Is she less confident? You have to be able to kind of suss things out very quickly and try to bring yourself to the table and be yourself, but also give the other people in the session what they need and try to get from them what you need. So it's a little bit complicated, but it's all very natural once you get the hang of it, okay? And then lastly, and this is true whether you're writing by yourself or with other people, but particularly with other people. Avoid what Allan, my songwriting partner with whom I wrote Run to You and most of the other big songs, what we call PSS, which is polite songwriter syndrome. It's human nature, the tendency to agree or maybe even latch on to other people's ideas, to validate them, and also because you want to feel productive when you're doing stuff. So as I said before, yes, you have to listen to people's ideas. Yes, you have to try stuff out. You have to leave your ego at the door. But what you don't want to do is agree to write something, go along with it, even if there's a little warning bell going, I don't think this is that good. I don't think it's good. You got to try it out, but 10 or 15 minutes down the road, if you're still feeling, I still don't get what they're going for here, you have to be able to come forward and say, I think we should try something else. It's great. I love it in a really nice way that doesn't bring anybody down. This could be really cool, but I'm not sure it's quite right for this project, or I don't love that idea as much as I think some of the other ideas. Can we try a different avenue? The goal, whether you're writing by yourself or whether you're collaborating with 10 other people, is always to write something great, not just something that will break through the digital noise, of which there is a ton in our world. I was mentioning it before in the song feedback segment, right? People are bombarded by songs, bombarded by digital, bombarded by every type of interaction and entertainment. Netflix and Amazon and Instagram and TikTok and blah, 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 right? All day long, right? You have to write something that breaks through that makes people not only listen, but want to hear it again and again and again if the song is going to be successful. There are lots of songs out there. Last I looked, there are 100 million songs, 100 million songs on Spotify, 100 million songs on Apple Music. Only a couple of thousand of those are actually getting regular airplay, okay? So how do you get people to find your song and listen to it? I have no idea, but once they do hear it, you got to make sure it's really special. It's got to be special enough to have somebody want to champion it, to somehow get it out there for you, right? Because there are lots of songs out there. I'm a professional songwriter. If you lock me in the closet and you said, Jud, I'm not letting you out until you hand me a song, 3 minutes and 18 seconds later, you'd hear a tap from the other side of the door. I'm ready. Here. And I'd have a song because I know how to write a song. I know how to structure and craft a song. Would it be any good? Most likely it would be pretty horrible, but I'd be out of the closet at least, right? That's not good enough. Just writing a song is not good enough. And one of the other advantages of co-writing is you can't fool yourself. You've got other people. And if they're avoiding the professional songwriter syndrome, the polite songwriter syndrome, they're being truthful with you. They're not going to let you, if you're all trying to write something great, they're not going to let you get away with, they're going to tell you, well, that's okay, but I think we can do better. It's nice to have somebody objective to tell you that. It's really helpful sometimes, right? But you got to be aiming for the stars whenever you write, particularly in collaborations. Write something great, not just write something. Take your time, experiment, try different things. Don't settle until everybody in the room is going, yeah, that's the guy. I love that. Let's finish that song. Okay. Aim for the stars. Okay. And I think that's about all I have to say about with an intro to collaboration. Any thoughts or questions, or anybody want to add anything to any of the stuff I said?
Matthew has a question.
Matthew.
One of the first things you said earlier was talking about coming prepared to a session. Can you give us kind of some examples of exactly what you mean by that, specifically how you would prepare, what you would bring, etc.?
Absolutely, yeah. And I could have specified a lot more. It all depends on the type of collaboration. But for example, if you're writing with an artist or for an artist, you're getting together with an artist in the room, or you're thinking, I've heard Rihanna, I keep using Rihanna, sorry about that, Rihanna. Rihanna needs a song. I think we should get together and write a song for her. What would you do to prepare, Matthew? What does a professional songwriter do before they're going to write with Rihanna?
First study them and their history and what you think they want out of it, so that you come with that knowledge. And then I guess then my question specifically is, how much prepared do you come in terms of like having already done anything independently before you get into the session versus just kind of trying to get a background on the person?
I think first of all, when you're co-writing, you have to be able to follow where things go. You have to be totally open to throwing everything you walked in without. Somebody walks in and you're about to say, hey, I have some ideas, and they sit down and play something on the piano and you go, oh my God, that's it, right? You have to be able to just depart from any plans that you had and go with the flow. But absolutely, before you're getting together with Rihanna, what would I do? Listen to all her music if I'm not totally familiar with it, because the biggest indicator of what an artist is going to want to do in the future is what they've done in the past. As somebody said earlier on, I don't remember if it was you, Matthew, but one of the great advantages of co-writing for an artist and for anybody is that they're going to be able to stretch and change. Yes, but Rihanna isn't suddenly going to be doing Bob Dylan folk songs from the 60s, right? It's very unlikely. It's possible, but she's probably going to be doing more Rihanna, but she's going to want to do what she's done before with a little twist, not repeat herself, but do something similar, right? So yeah, check out her music. Go online. Guess what? We have the internet. There is something called social media. What's she going through in her life? I don't think that's necessarily as important, but it might give you some clue about things she likes to do, things she might be interested in writing about. Her music is also going to tell you the kinds of lyrics she likes, the kinds of music she likes, the kind of vocal range she has, right? So just be prepared for that. If it's a film project, try to get a script. Try to get a description of what the film is about. If it's for a particular scene, of course, you have to see a little YouTube or something of what the scene is. You try to be as educated as possible, get as much information about the project and or the artist before you walk in the room, and give it some thought. That's all I'm suggesting.
So that's all stuff about having knowledge and a background and a kind of an idea in your head. Would you come in with like actual specific musical ideas or lyrical ideas?
Yes. The first thing I think I said was go through your ideas files, voice memos, notes, anything you have that you think could be good for this project, even vaguely good, even just a title. Maybe you have a chorus, maybe you have half a song written. Anything that could work for this session, bring it. And I'm not talking about bringing 20 ideas. You can have 20 ideas in front of you if you want, just in case people start running low and you want to fire some thoughts at people. I've had people go, they bring their titles. Oh, I've got Blue Dinosaur in the Green Tree. No, I don't think so. Grandmother crossing a street. I'm not sure. And they're just reading their list off. I don't know that can be helpful, whatever. But sure, bring in whatever ideas you have that could be relevant to this project. And maybe even sit down, if you have time, try to come up with something for the session. Sure. A start. Okay.
Go ahead, Lucius.
Did you have a question, Lucius?
Yeah, okay. One of the things I was going to somewhat recommend is sometimes it's like you can get in there, you can sort of bounce an idea. Sometimes an idea doesn't always start out as great, but then sometimes what's going to go in, I know it's just like everybody sort of rush and everything, but certain things you work on have a tendency of growing over a period. So like I said, they don't always start out great, but then after a while, it's just like, it sort of warms up. So sometimes, okay, some people say, okay, there's that idea. Sometimes it says, well, like I said, but then like I said, you sort of rephrase it in a certain manner and it can end up working.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying, is that you have to give people a little rope, right? Because you might listen to it, they might throw something at you in the first minute and you're thinking to yourself, you don't make my face, but this is the face you're making inside. Yeah, right? But you got to listen, let them play it out a little bit. Let them show you let them convince you a little bit. And by the same token, if you're the person playing the idea, you want to show people stuff, but you don't want to have to convince them too much. It should just work. You can always take the idea and walk out. And if you still believe in it, write it on your own or write it with somebody else. I've done that a million times where I bring this. No, that's not quite right for this. Okay, I'll just put it back on my file and I'll use it somewhere else. But yeah, you got.
Like when Dylan wrote All Along the Watchtower, originally it was like, it was done, with some local musicians, and he also, it actually sounded like a demo when he tracked it, considered it was just like it was a major label release. But when Hendrix got a hold of it, then it's just like it never really brought it in total fruition.
True. Anybody else? Any comments, thoughts, questions before I start talking a little bit about Run to You?
Nancy had a question, and then I have one.
Okay. Nancy, you have to
Unmute yourself, Nancy.
Nancy, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm on mute. Earlier you mentioned that for co-writing, you said that an artist won't record your song unless they are a co-writer. So how does one break through the artist gatekeeper to get an opportunity to write with an artist? They're not going to write just with anybody.
For that, you'll have to take my 4-year, 40-hour-a-week course because there's no easy answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the biggest question of the songwriter's experience. I've got the song. How do I get it to Whitney Houston? I mean, there's no linear answer to that question. There's never any linear answers to anything in this business, unfortunately. But all we can talk about it right now is you have to write something great. You have to have this, and if it's for an artist and the artist isn't in the room with you, it's a calling card. It's extremely unlikely, as I said, that the artist will listen to your song, Nancy, and go, Eureka, I'm going to go cut that, no matter how much they like it, even if they should, because they want to have their names on it for financial and for creative reasons. They want to be part of it, quote unquote. But you still have to write the songs that show them that they'd be good that you'd be a good writer to work with them on their project. And a lot of people, I was just talking to somebody who was at a song camp and a BMG song camp, and the approach, the people who put it together said, we do not want you to finish songs, write a verse and a chorus, and then we will take the verse and the chorus to the artist and to their managers and their producers and their record companies, because the songs start, a collaborator, an artist could hear and go, oh, Nancy, I love your verse and chorus, let me take it home and write a second verse. Let's get together and change the B section a little bit. Let's play with it because it's not finished, right? So people who are trying to pitch to artists who aren't writing the beginnings of the song with the artist, they're more starts, they're more frameworks and ideas, hopefully with something really, they have to have something really exciting and compelling about them, but then the artist can feel free to bring it in, to come in and put their stamp on it. Okay.
I think Gary has a question for you.
Gary.
Do the artists, being a songwriter, do they usually demand or ask for 100% publishing?
No.
No.
But they're going to want published. They're going to want their percentage of the song. If there are 5 people in the room, they'll want 20%, although that's a whole other issue, what song share should be and what's fair and what's appropriate. But the typical thing is, I wrote the song with 5 people and I'm one of the 5 people, and I'll take 20% of the songwriting and 20% of the publishing.
Are there any publishers nowadays signing writers? Or is there a list of those companies?
publishers sign only songwriters? That's what they do. Yeah. I
Is
mean,
there
I
any
don't know.
kind of a list?
You mean, are there publishers who are actively looking for songwriters? I'm not sure what you're asking, Gary. I'm sure. Sorry.
Yeah, I just, you have to get aligned with somebody that's up in the business to get
Yeah.
your songs heard, I mean,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
hire a lawyer for money and they'll shop your songs, but the old days of the Brill Building, and that kind of a situation.
Yeah, no, it's very different, but of course, they're publishers, that's what they do, is sign songwriters.
Yeah.
But how you get signed, that's an unanswerable music business. There are no
And of course, you
limits.
need a lawyer to submit anything, because they're gonna, throw away your package if it comes to the mail.
Trying to find the contacts to get to the people you need to get to, very hard, always very hard.
I
Other
can
questions? Yeah.
just
Other
real quickly to answer Gary's question partially. I can tell you from some knowledge that I have that the larger publishers very, very rarely sign individual songwriters these days. They're picking up catalogs of music from smaller publishers and pulling them in. So
They
if
want to
you
sell what
really-
they've already got.
Yeah, well, but no, they're bringing on new people all the time, but they're only bringing on groups of people. They're not bringing on unless you're already huge and it's maybe transferring a deal from a different publisher. So if you're wanting to get a deal, you're going to be much more successful trying to find real small indie publishers and like get in with them. And that's easier to network with them and stuff too, because the major publishers, I worked a stint at Warner Chappell, and they don't really sign individual people unless you are like already big.
Right.
Other questions?
Yes, Lisa has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Lisa.
Are you gonna be using the reverb, or you're off the reverb?
No
Lisa?
reverb. So this kind of goes back to Nancy's question, and
I can't see your head, Lisa. You're cut off, by the way. If that's what you're going for, that's the look. There you are. Hey.
I don't care if you see my head, but if you want to see your head.
It's kind of nice to put the head with the words. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you say, pitch that song. Okay. How do you pitch that song? If you don't know someone or haven't into that artist, if I want to pitch my song.
I want to pitch my song.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys, this could, again, this is a 40-hour a week for the next 4 years discussion, right? I'm talking about the experience of writing songs together, collaborating with songs. When you've written a song, that's a whole, okay, now we have something we think is great. How do you get it to the people you want to get it to, who could possibly record it? That's a whole other, and there's no linear answer to that. I know everybody wants that answer, but there is no linear answer. That is just pounding on doors and hearing somebody in the grocery line saying, yeah, when I get home, I'm going to show this to my girlfriend, Rihanna. Oh, hey, listen, I have this. Can I show you my Spotify really? I mean, there's no answer to that question.
Are you into collaborating with anyone?
I don't usually collaborate with new songwriters, people I haven't worked with, unless they are making a record, unless they're artists themselves usually.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I just don't have the time, and I have Allan, and Allan and I are like brothers. So I mean,
Is he the lyricist and you're the?
No, I write lyrics and music. He is primarily a lyricist with very good musical. Yeah, but we have a thing. So we got a thing going on. All right. Any other questions about co-writing?
Yeah.
Did you want to, did you have something, Rick? Was it Rick who had something, or anybody? No?
No, I think we've got through everybody. I will say we do lots of collaborations here at Songsalive, and some of them have been totally awesome. I can say that because I worked on one.
I would love to have that singer who sang the country song, Man, I'm the Man, or the Man. I would love to have that vocalist. If I could get that number.
In the chat.
Yeah.
I have a question. Hey, Jud, how do you feel about, like, when someone's nominated for a Grammy, they win the Grammy, and 10, 15 people walk up to the stage on that one song? My point, not to knock that, that's just simply saying That's a lot of people on one song. How does that work?
I've never written a song with 10 or 15 people. I just don't know how they do it. And I don't know how they split up the shares and what makes sense. And I think a lot of people just like to get a lot of their friends and people they like to hang out with in the studio and just throw ideas around like a party. I just, for me, that's not how I like to write, but whatever works, I don't care.
Or if it's a whole band, they share the wealth.
Yeah, but bands are usually 4 or 5 people as opposed to 10 or 15. 4 or 5 I can handle, but 10 or 15 I don't quite get. But you know what? If it works, don't fix it.
I think you were going to tell us a story about the Whitney before you go about the Whitney Houston.
I can tell some
collaboration.
Whitney stories. We only have about 15 minutes, but I'll give you kind of the nuts and bolts of how it all came together. And there's a lot more to the story, of course, and then I'll try to open things up. I'll give you a quick rundown of the whole story of Run to You. So here we are in 1992, and the word goes out in the songwriting community and publishing community that Whitney's doing a movie, and she's pretty much the biggest artist in the world at the time. And by the way, Allan and I usually tell this story together. We've done lots of interviews where we tell the story. Recently, there was a lot of hoopla about Whitney because it was the 30th anniversary of The Bodyguard, and a movie about her came out. I don't know if you guys saw the movie. It's really fun if you haven't seen it. So we've been doing a lot of interviews about this whole process, so we get a brief he had a publisher and I had a publisher, separate publishers, mine Pure Music and his was MCA. And we get a brief from our publishers, and pretty much every songwriter who was doing anything, who had any credibility or publisher or representative was getting the same brief, saying they needed 4 songs for the movie and giving us no script, no video, nothing, just a little breakdown, a couple of sentences about 4 different scenes and the type of song they needed for these 4 scenes. So there was one scene where there was supposed to be a breakup song where the Kevin Costner character and the Whitney character were breaking up. And we wrote a song for that scene. And we had some decent connections to Clive Davis through our publisher. And Clive Davis was Whitney Houston's record executive, the head of her record company and her representative, and had discovered her. And we wrote this breakup song. It was perfect timing because Allan had just gone through a breakup and he was like totally primed. He actually had this idea that he had been thinking about. And it was like, we need a breakup song. He was like, great, I have this title and we'll go from there, right? And the original lyric was, I want to run to you, but you're not there to run to anymore. That was the original lyric, right? So we get the song to Clive's right-hand person, a guy named Jerry Griffith, and he gives the song to Clive. And then Clive leaves a message on Allan's voicemail saying that he loves it and Whitney loves it. And so we're thinking, and this is such a microcosm of the music business, we're thinking, we're in, man. We're buying the yachts in our head and everything's great and it's fantastic, right? Not so fast, right? So we get on the phone with Clive and he's telling us how much he likes it. And he says, there's just one little thing. And we're like, okay, what's the one little thing? He says, could you play around with the demo and make it sound a little more like a Whitney record? So when I did the demo, which was even at that time in the early 90s, pretty unusual, I played it out of time. I didn't play to a click track. I was just feeling it a certain way. And I just liked the kind of slow downs and speed ups and more like a performance of the song, but without a click track. So I played it out of time. I also did it basically as a piano vocal with a couple of little things, a couple of strings and some orchestration and a little fake guitar sound and things, but no production beyond that, because I just felt like it was really intimate and beautiful that way, and it really told the story. Even then, the conventional wisdom was do a full production of the record. So Clive says, can you make it sound a little more like a Whitney record? So, and I said to him, what do you mean by that? Sure, whatever you need, but what do you mean? And he says, more like a Whitney record. That was all he gave us, which is so typical of the music business. Now you got to remember, Clive Davis is probably the most sophisticated, one of the smartest, one of the most accomplished record executives of all time. And he had discovered Whitney. This is a guy with a degree from Harvard Law School. He's a smart guy. He could not tell me anything about what he wanted. So we get off, we're like, yeah, sure, no problem. We get off the phone, Allan and I are like, so I said, I think the only thing we could take from the conversation is he wants it to be more produced and sound like a more finished record. So we had to go back in the studio and basically overdubbed drums and bass. I played bass and a synth bass, and we got a friend of ours to play drums, which was very tricky because anybody out there, as all of you guys know, if you're playing something out of time and you're trying to put it in time after the fact, he's playing drums and it'd be like, I want to run. Okay, stop. It sped up a little bit there. Try speeding up a little bit. Okay, now slow down a little bit. It took us 4 hours to do the 3.5 minute song. But there we go. Okay. So we send it back to Clive and he goes, oh, great. That's just what I wanted. Love it. So we're thinking, okay, now we can start buying the yachts. Not so fast. We're in the studio working on a Ray Charles record and the phone rings. And it's from a guy named Mick Jackson, who was the director of the Bodyguard film. And he was a great guy, British guy. And when they were making the film, he kept inviting us down to the set and showing us where the song was going to be used. And we hung out with Kevin Costner and Whitney and everybody else. And it was great, right? But that's down the road. This part of the road, early on the road, before they've actually started finishing the song, he says, you know, we love the song. It's fantastic. It's just this one little thing. And Allan and I go, oh, okay, what's the one little thing? You know, our hearts are, he says, well, we want it to be a falling in love song instead of a breakup song because we want to use it early in the movie instead of late in the movie. And he goes, just like this, he goes, but you can do that, right? No problem, right? You can make a couple little tweaks, right? So Allan and I, what's our response? And everybody, if you learn nothing else from this whole time in this on this Zoom, these are the 3 words you should remember the most. No problem, babe. Okay, no problem. You have to add babe. All right. We hang up, we fall down to the ground, having heart palpitations, you know, and then we pick ourselves up and we knew we had to rewrite the song. We knew we had to keep I Want to Run to You because that was such a strong hook, we thought. But we literally changed every other word in the lyrics. And we changed it from a breakup song to a falling in love song. And then we had to go back in and re-record the vocal. And then we had to send it to Clive because Clive early on calls us up and says, I heard about this. I heard that Mick wants you to change the lyrics. He said, give it a shot. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, the song is such a hit the way it is as a breakup song at that point that Whitney has a greatest hits record coming out and in a year, and we'll put it on our greatest hits. It'll be the +1 on a greatest hits record and everything's cool. So we get off the phone with him. We said, excuse my French, no fucking way. There's no way we're missing this opportunity. We're not waiting for her. This is Whitney Houston. She's doing a film. It's going to be humongous, you know, and the record's going to be humongous. We gotta find a way to write this. Okay. So we rewrite the song. Clive loves it. Mick loves it. They're putting it in the film. Little asterisk there. Whitney's greatest hit record came out 9 years later, not 1 year later. Okay. So we made the right choice there. So we kept Run to You. We changed everything else in the lyric. Finally, Clive loves it. Film company loves it. Everything's cool. You go in the studio with Whitney. And I'm making the record with David Foster, who's the producer. And she walks in, nicest person in the world. It's so easy to work with, so professional, sits down, has a cold actually. And when she starts singing, that all goes away. Sits down right next to me and she says, show me how to sing the song with a lyric sheet. And she knew the song like the back of her hand, but she wanted me as the songwriter, who's maybe responsible a little bit more for the melodic stuff in the song, to kind of walk her through some of the vocal stuff. So I did for about a half an hour. And then David Foster turns to me and he says, can you put down a scratch vocal on the song? And this place is filled with, there's Whitney and her entourage. There's the head of the film company. There's the head of the record company. There's Kevin Costner and all his entourage. And they're all looking at me like this. And I'm like, okay, no problem, babe. I have to go in the studio and in 4 minutes, sing a Whitney Houston version of Run to You live in her range. And unfortunately, I have a pretty high voice. I can get up there pretty high, but I walk out and everybody in the place gives me a round of applause, not because it was such a good vocal, I think, but just because I survived the experience. And then when we're recording the song with her, she keeps stopping and she would go, Jud, did I sing that right? Is that right? And everyone in the place, again, looks at me like, what do you say to this woman? Because everything she sang was so incredible. Every mistake was so incredible. I mean, she was so gifted. She's such on a different level as a singer from everybody else. And so she was sick. She could barely talk, and she opened her mouth, and everything was amazing. So all I could say was, well, maybe you could try it. It's not exactly, but she was just so great. It was amazing. And I even got to do backgrounds on the record with the demo singer, whose name was Valerie Pinkston. She had done the demo of the song originally. So, and that was all, folks. We kept getting invited down to the film set. The song came out, and the record came out, and the rest is music history. It's still.
Did you buy a
story.
yacht?
Never give up.
I've
Did
got
you-
I got a couple of yachts here in the pool.
Okay.
They're very small. Very small. They're kids' versions of the yacht. And that's all, folks. That's about it. I don't know if have any questions about it, but that's all I got. Now
I
I'm
have a
getting-
question about
Oh.
you, Judd, if you don't mind.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'm
Um,
sitting down.
I would love to hear, basically, I would kind of love to hear how you went from where we all are to where you are. I mean, before, obviously, you were writing songs for Whitney movies, you were doing other things. How did you get broken, as it were? How did you break?
I'm not a broken man just yet, Rick, but how did I break? Again, I know this is kind of turning into the theme here. There's no linear way of doing this stuff. I wish I could tell you guys, because this is virtually every Zoom I've ever done, virtually every panel I've ever been on, it almost immediately devolves into people going, how do I break? Right? And I get that, because I was that guy. I totally understand. That's the question. You believe in your songs, how do I get them out there, right?
And how did you?
Yeah, it's totally unique. I came up in an era in which I didn't feel at the time that I had to be Justin Bieber. I didn't have to be a protoplasm or a protozoa or whatever. I didn't have to be an ultrasound to actually start focusing on my music. I didn't have to be 14 or 16 or 18. So I went to college. I went to law school. When I was going to law school, I thought, I love music. I'm not sure. The family business was law. I didn't really know what it involved, but I kind of like thinking and writing and analyzing. And all right, I'm not sure I want to be a professional songwriter. And then I pretty quickly decided, as much as I thought law was really interesting, that I loved music. So I finished law school, and I actually didn't really I was doing demos and writing songs while I was in college and I was in law school. And I was taking trips from the Boston area where I was in law school to New York, because I had a manager and I was doing demos and it was amazing. It was the mid 70s and mid 80s. And it was like, they had a 16-track machine. They had a 16-track tape machine. It was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I was there flipping back and forth on the Amtrak and doing demos because I wanted to be an artist originally. And then after that, I realized I got out of law school and moved to New York, started playing clubs all over the place. This is a really fast version. I had an epiphany where I realized I didn't really crave being an artist, but I craved making music. So I focused on being a songwriter and producer. I started sending songs out all over the place, and I got a lot of response from out here. And so I jumped on a plane and moved out here. And I thought I was an overnight success. I went down to Kenny Rogers was very interested in me and his team as a songwriter. And I used to hang out. He had a studio called Lion Chair Recording Studio in West Hollywood. I hung out there. First came out, one of the first nights I was here, I stayed up all night with David Foster and Michael Omarty and a bunch of people in that recording studio who were all telling me they love my stuff, everything's great. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm a star. And 5 years later, I had my first big record. So
What were the publishing and writers negotiations on your and Allan's song, Run to Me?
Well, let me finish my story first, because so for those 5 years, I just banged on doors like all you guys. I just kept trying to make relationships, going to songwriting things, meeting other people. Finally started making some connections with a company called Pure Music. They were interested in signing me as a songwriter. And Kathy Spanberger, who was and still is the head of Pure Music, except for Ralph Peer, who's the owner of the company, and his family. She knew Allan, she knew me, and Allan and I had met very briefly once or twice. And she kept saying, I have a feeling about you guys. I think you should write songs together. And she ended up putting us together. And he called me from her office one day. They were having lunch, and she said, you guys keep missing one another. Pick up the phone. Here's the phone. Call Jud. And I was living between apartments. I was staying at a friend's apartment. I had nothing to write with except for a DX7 keyboard and a cable to a stereo box. So an RCA cable, that's all I had. And he calls me, he goes, I have this idea for a song. Kathy's forcing me to tell you it's not quite ready. I was gonna, all right, just tell me. And he reads me a lyric to a song called I Don't Have the Heart. The beginning of a lyric, which was so brilliant, and I can brag about it because it wasn't my idea, it was totally Allan's idea. He reads me the first verse and chorus of I Don't Have the Heart, and I almost fell off my chair. I said goodbye, and I ran over to the keyboard, wrote it in like 15 minutes, called him back and said, come over, I got to play you something. And we finished the song together, and that was my first big hit. It was a #1 song. And it went from there. So I don't know if that answers your question, Rick, but that's all I got. And in terms of, yeah,
Thank you. I'm gonna cut you off though, Gary, because I think that's a little big of a topic for us to go over at this point. But I will jump in. Nico had a question, Jud, something on your website about QWAQA,
Yeah.
QWAQA.
oh, Quack, that was an app I created a few years ago, which unfortunately never really. I just loved it so much. It was the hidden songs, the hidden gems of great songwriters, the demos of the songs that became hits, the songs that didn't become hits, that fell through the cracks, because all of us songwriters who had a little modicum of success, unless you're Diane Warren or you're somebody in a certain phase of her life, and certainly not now, where everything you write gets recorded. Almost every songwriter who's had some success, 90% of their catalog, nobody's ever heard. And there's a lot of songs in my catalog with Allan and with other people, which I love very much, but the timing just wasn't right. So I created this app for the hidden gem songs of great songwriters. Just, that's a whole other long story as well. But also in terms of my website and stuff, if anybody is looking for mentoring, if anybody is looking for feedback, if anybody is looking for more advice about stuff, or even potentially to write stuff, I get hired to do lots of stuff, to produce records. I'm really easy to find. If anybody needs me, I'm Jud at judfriedmanmusic.com. Jud is 1 D, not 2. I never got the second D. That doesn't make sense to me. It's silent. But Jud at judfriedmanmusic.com, websites, I'm all over the place. If you ever want to contact me and reach out for projects or anything, please do. It's always a pleasure working with people, great creative people. So I love that.
I don't think we can top that. So I'll hand things back to Rick, and let's wrap it up. First off, thank you very, very much for your time today, Jud. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for hanging out, giving me a couple hours of your Sunday, you guys.
And thanks for giving us your Sunday, part of your Sunday afternoon as well.